The ceiling of the glacial hall was borne aloft on a single thick pillar of ice. The column twisted out of the floor and stretched up towards the ceiling like a hand grasping desperately for purchase. In its center, the bones of an ancient ogre hung in perfect formation, frozen in place centuries after the dissolution of its mortal form. The tidecaster far below came to a stop in front of the column. She raised her pelagic staff, and brilliant waves of white light spilled forth to bore slowly into the thick ice. "Stop your incessant writhing, you impudent layabout," muttered Vexmore, even as the frigid air chafed at his throat. Steaming sweat continued to pool in the folds of his bounteous form. He gave Vashtis a sharp shove, sending her skittering across the rocky ledge they were watching from. The scowling sorceress's snake-tail legs coiled and uncoiled in protest. "Don't place the blame on me, my indolence. It's Laskivir's ostentatious number of limbs that keep getting in the way," she whispered, earning her a venomous glare from the assassin. They watched as the ice between the staff and the glowing tides began to crack inch by painstaking inch. The tidecaster's pair of guards positioned themselves at her back as she worked, their serrated razors pointed outwards. "This salt-crusted wretch thinks she can claim our prize," scoffed Vexmore. "By the time she has hollowed out her silly little passage, we will have shattered their eardrums and caressed their minds with the Dark Prince's melodies. Let us pluck our harvest from their blood-crusted pockets." "Hark, Laskivir," hissed Vashtis from beside him, her slit pupils constricting and dilating with every quiver of the torchlight. "This one talks of slaying his rivals, yet he will surely force the burden upon us without lifting a finger of aid." No answer came from Laskivir. The bickering heralds turned to find that the baleful assassin had vanished. Frenzied shouts echoed up from down below. "My Lady Serene, unhand her, accursed fiend!" The two peered down to see the carnal four-armed demon near the soul column, Laskivir's knife pushed to the tidecaster's throat. The pair shared a withering glance. "Just charge in, then," puffed Vexmore, struggling to his feet. Before he could fully pull himself up, the coiled sorceress gave him a firm push, sending him tumbling off the stone ledge and straight into the fray. "After you, my excessive indolence." Vashti smiled after him, teeth as bright as knives. Gur is the sovereign domain of predators. Beasts the size of mountains lock horns in unending battles for dominance. Root-limbed plants that would dwarf mastodons gobble up weary travelers on the most well-charted paths. Even the continents themselves lock together, crashing violently before breaking apart in constant competition with one another. Now that the era of the beast has arrived, this ferocity has reached frenzied new heights as the god of earthquakes rises ascendant. The DEATHGORGE, one of Gur's many hungering maws, encapsulates the bestial struggle of the realm within its craggy cradle. Once revered as the Death Gorge by the Aurochs, it bore witness to great stumps of mega-gargants feeding on the mortals that sought to test their mettle within. It saw the fall of the Dark God's armies at the hands of the Iron Yaws. It changed hands yet again as ogres charged through its rocky gullet, driving out the gargants and greenskins and infecting the steep gorge Gorge with the Everwinter curse. Now the Everwinter has inextricably sunk its teeth into the Deathgorge. It coats the chasm's walls with impenetrable frost and chokes its tunnels with air cold enough to freeze living being from the inside out. Great ice stalactites puncture its rocky halls, the rime-clad skulls of adventurers and native creatures looking down from within them, their souls petrified in eternal agony. For those with the arcane power to do so, an ice-bound supply of preserved souls can be bought from the enchanted glaciers, but for every intrepid explorer lies a monstrous creature waiting to consume them. Deep below the surface, corrupted worm creatures tunnel in constant writhing agony as the Everwinter freezes their blood. The eternal burrowing of these cursed rime worms deepens the gorge and creates thousands of crisscrossing frigid passageways. Rumors abound of priceless weapons and artifacts emerging untouched within the deepest of the wormways. These magical relics, thought lost as far back as the Age of Myth, are said to have been created in an ancient kingdom nestled in Krakatoa's Gorge. They are always found sticky to the touch and coated in a strange amber residue, as if regurgitated from the belly of some sickly beast. How they have made their way across the realm is a mystery, but one thing is for certain: the icy jaws of the Everwinter's curse will not loosen their grip on these treasures willingly. On the southern continent of Bjarl lies the Deathgorge, a frozen moor in the very heart of Gur that spirals into an icy crumbling nest of hungering tunnels. The Everwinter has fused into its countless desolate halls, trapping the souls of the dead it consumes in spiraling stalagmites and icy columns hundreds of feet tall. If the surface of Gur is a brutal hunter, with continents tearing at the throats of their neighbors, then the depths of the Deathgorge are an ice spider's frosted web, slow, creeping, and inevitable. Its frozen mouth, once home to the countless greenskins that revered it as the Deathgorge, has now become an entrance to an infinite sprawl of burrowed tunnels wrought by frost-infected rime worms. These huge worm-like monsters leave trails hundreds of feet in diameter that are said to extend throughout the entire continent and beyond, crisscrossing into Galat and Thondia. The Everwinter moves through them like a toxin that poisons the heart of its prey. The bronchial pathways of the frozen gorge may even reach as far as the Gnarlwood, as questing astral Templars have written of the flesh-sundering torment of the Gnarloaks, giving way to the barren cold of the depths. The sprawling descent into the Deathgorge is not without its dark grandeur. At its shallower levels, the frozen remains of slain gargants hang suspended behind sparkling glaciers, and unfortunate ogres remain eternally poised for the killing stroke, overtaken by their chilling curse. Deeper still, danger lurks behind the breathtaking facades of ice and snow. Frozen waterfalls are strung mid-cascade between crossed tunnels, ready to shatter and flood the surrounding tunnel's network the moment another hideous rime-crusted spawn burrows its way through afresh. Stalactite fingers, infected with the Everwinter's touch, freeze solid those unfortunate souls that so much as brush by their edges. Certain passageways give way completely in the dark, with the lucky victims dying on impact below, while the unlucky ones tumble into inescapable wells of frigid water that flood their throats and lungs. Truly rare, but no less deadly, is to catch sight of one of the frightful rime worms themselves. The spawn of the Deathgorge are very different to the children of Fangatrak that burrow through the rest of Gur. Touched by the Everwinter, but too powerful to succumb fully to its life-draining freeze, they have warped into disfigured, frost-hearted alpha beasts whose veins flow painfully with liquid eyes. Desperate to relieve their pain, they will destroy anything that crosses their path, even each other. These devastating battles see these creatures throttling and freezing their rivals deep below the spiked maw of the Deathgorge. These devastating battles see the creatures throttling and freezing their rivals deep below the spiked maw of the gorge. Woe betide anyone nearby a convergence of rhineworms, for if they are not crushed under their undulating weight, they will be frozen in an instant by the sub-zero temperatures emanating from the wrinkles in their leathery bodies. Since the Everwinter transformed the Deathgorge from an orc-infested canyon into a cold and uninhabitable tomb, it has begun to attract bold prospectors on the hunt for its twofold bounty. Intrepid soul plunderers seek to dig an endless source of spiritual animus from columns of living eyes, while rumors of treasures so ancient that they predate the arrival of chaos attract bands of raiders, mages, and adventurers in equal measure. These artifacts have been identified as belonging to the distant kingdom of Anbara, once a great settlement during the Age of Myth that was famed for its great bone towers, forged from the skeletons and alpha beasts. The magic wrought in this old settlement channeled the primal energy of Gur through weapons of petrified beast blood. It was rumored to have fallen during the great clash between Gorkamorka and Sigmar, when the latter freed the green-skinned deity from the gelatinous god-beast Drakatoa's insides. Furious at having to be saved by the lightning god, Gorkamorka was said to have dulled him for 12 days and 12 nights until they came to an exhausted stalemate. The supposed site of the kingdom was ground to dust within Drakatoa's Gorge and was lost during this holy rampage. Wild tales abound as to how the beast blood treasures of Anbara appeared in the Deathgorge, and the pools of amber phlegm they are always discovered in have led to whispers that Drakatoa itself has passed through the area. If this is true, the question remains as to what this ancient denizen of Gur once sought within Deathgorge's barren halls. Yet despite the ever-present threat of an agonizing, frost-bitten death, legends of an ancient beast depositing the treasures of a lost empire is enough to tempt anyone. There is always close competition between the disparate elven races, the marauding bands of chaos, and the staunch agents of Nagash, all of whom believe that the soul bounty of the rime-ridden caverns is rightfully theirs. Artifacts and souls of times long gone remain trapped in the Deathgorge, with more being discovered every day as the beastly denizens of its cold corridors extend its reach with every movement they make. Bounties untold remain untapped, waiting for adventurers to survive just long enough to gouge them from the eyes. The Deathgorge was not always a rime-encrusted wound in Bjarl's side. It was originally honored by Oryx as the Deathgorge, said to be scraped out by the toenail of Gorkamorka and filled with gargants for them to fight. Greenskin warriors seeking their first scars would run the gauntlet along its length and display the bites taken out of them in the process. It was the cyclical nature of predator and prey that Gur is so known for that was to bring about the Deathgorge's cold metamorphosis. Beast-claw raiders waged war against the Gargants within its sand-blasted chambers, bringing with them the roiling blizzard of the Everwinter. Many of the Gorge's inhabitants were slain, with yet more forced underground or driven away. Yet long after the marauding ogres left, the Everwinter remained. No one is truly sure why the Everwinter's effect on the Deathgorge are so tenacious. Shamans whisper of Bjarl itself exerting its will, attempting to reach out and tear at the neighboring continent of Galit with chill fingers. Seraphim priests propose far darker explanations to their slan masters, that the Everwinter may possess malevolent sentience and is using the tangled tunnels of the Gorge to reach the Eye of Sotek, the realm-shaping ruin in the heart of the Nullwood. Such a collision would surely plunge the garish heartlands into an eternal hoarfrost. Despite cutting a frigid slice out of an area that once teemed with life, the Everwinter has opened up new opportunities for prospecting warriors. As warbands flock to the Deathgorge, its glacial curse claims yet more lives, creating an unending supply of souls for those that can avoid being trapped themselves. Whether warriors see these trapped souls as a precious resource or their rightful claim, many descend into the cursed tunnels, driven by this motive alone. The Everwinter will not relinquish its soul bounty so easily. The hungering winter moves with bestial sentience, and is just as ravenous as any other physical beasts that call Gur its home. Icy stalactites and stalagmites lining cave mouths gnash together like great teeth. Those that so much as brush erroneously against these frozen formations are quickly encased in ice. Dark waters suck down any that take so much as one step from the path, flash freezing their flailing limbs. Extracting souls from the stomach of the Everwinter is a task for the truly desperate, for the art of soul magic always carry a prize. But for those unwilling to pay such toll, there is far more to be found within the Deathgorge's glacial halls for those that venture deep enough. There is treasure to be found within the Deathgorge, though it comes at a price unimaginable. Hundreds have delved into the ice-crusted tunnels, risking frostbite, petrification, and drowning, all for even the smallest chance of finding one of the lost blood treasures of Anbara. The lucky few that have shattered through glaciers and smashed past the Everwinter's frosted teeth have brought back true wonders of artifice. From knives that can track designated prey to enchanted arrows that bite into their opponents like the jaws of a beast. But one question remains unanswered: how these relics traveled from Drakatoa's Gorge in Rondhol to the continent of Bjarl in the far south in the first place. The answer may lie with the eponymous Drakatoa itself, known as the Living Avalanche. This fabled god-beast absorbed Gorgamorka and entombed him for centuries until he was freed by Sigmar. When Anbara was flattened during the ensuing rampage, it is likely many of the treasures were absorbed by Drakatoa as it began mindlessly perching south. Rumors of Drakatoa's passing and the gelatinous evidence of its presence have been recorded across the ages, and is said to have crossed into Bjarl before the ravenous continents of Rondhol and Thondia attacked each other once more. Scholars intrigued by the Anbara conundrum all have theories about Drakatoa's motives, though it is generally agreed that the god-beast probably remained dormant below the Deathgorge for thousands of years to reconstitute itself after its clash with the gods, and has only recently reawakened. The deep recesses of the gorge's northern wormways hold the greatest of the treasure deposits, and the strange and sticky state they are always found in supports the theory that they were disgorged from Drakatoa as it squeezed itself along. Just where the Living Avalanche is going is unknown, though every possible answer has the natives of Gur filled with concern, considering Sigmar himself was unable to destroy it. Does it wish to consume the many free cities being established in Galat? Is it attempting to reach the Moorgate to enter the 8 points? Could it simply want to go home? Whatever the reason may be, the race is now on to claim as many of these artifacts as possible, and a steady stream of new victims are risking an eternity sealed within the ice for the sake of fame and power. But the unfortunate clutches of the Everwinter will not allow warbands to pass through the Deathgorge's frozen throat unchecked. For each artifact claimed, a dozen more warriors will find themselves sealed behind eternal glistening glaciers, impaled upon beds of blue stalagmites, or pulled into underground currents and drowned. Many more will stumble upon buried pearls the size of cannonballs and assume they will be wealthy for the rest of their lives, only for their bounty to hatch into monstrous rime worms that devour them partway through the journey back to the surface. For the particularly unlucky, the Everwinter's curse may simply thicken around them, dropping the temperature so drastically that the outsides of their bodies freeze up in an instant, never to thaw again. Yet the number of people seeking a shortcut to power is unquantifiable, and the Deathgorge continues to be fed a diet of fresh victims every day. No one truly knows how the Everwinter came to be. The curse has always followed Beastclaw ogres, forcing them to keep moving in search of food and prey, manifesting as punishing hailstorms and frostbitten fogs that constantly threaten to freeze them solid. Many Gurish natives believe it to be a curse of Gorkamorka, but the spectacular freezing of the Deathgorge has thrown all previous knowledge into question. Although the Everwinter swept into the Deathgorge in the wake of the war between ogres and gargants, the ice that froze over the chasm's rocky heart never melted. Long after the Beastclaw raiders' departure, the Deathgorge remains petrified in thick glacial layers, consumed entirely by the reveling rime. Its sheets of frost contain not only the ancient gargant souls that fought in the First War, but also those of more recent adventurers that arrived to plumb the tunnel's depths. Even now, the hideous rime worms that have taken up residence below the rocky floors burrow further into the surrounding continents and widen the Everwinter's influence on an unprecedented scale. Its cold malignancy is slowly creeping through the very veins of Gur and shows no sign of stopping. Just how much sentience the Everwinter truly possesses is unknown, if indeed it has any at all. It has slain countless warbands that have delved into the Deathgorge, and while many are thrust into the sharpened ice beds by malicious enemies or the rushing tide of a burrowing rime worm, some are killed seemingly at random as the curse waxes and wanes throughout the tunnels. Abrupt temperature changes, ice water floods appearing from thin air, sudden sinkholes, and many other suspiciously ill-timed phenomena have been recorded in adventurers' horrific last moments. Many ogres now regard it as a holy site, where an aspect of Gorkamorka rampages constantly in the form of an unstoppable blizzard. This causes more paths to occasionally converge upon the Deathgorge to make sacrifices to ward off the Everwinter, which in turn strengthens the curse's clutches on the chasm. Much like asking whether the Draconith or the egg came first, it is entirely possible that the Everwinter's unnatural extension is caused by a large concentration of the curse's original recipients. The rime worms that dig the passages also carry the Everwinter with them like an infection. Whilst the spread of the eternal frost is slow on its own, the worm-like creatures expedite its grasp below Gur's crust. Freshly dug passageways pulse like the tunnels of a colossal lung, with Rugo's glacial walls coated in trails of slippery frigid blood, ridged with razored chitin as they are. It is thought that the rime worms constantly slash and maim themselves whilst burrowing in an attempt to find relief from the veins of liquid cold. The Everwinter's rapid spread has likely been influenced by the will of Bjarl itself. Each continent of Gorge is a predator in its own right, constantly battling for dominance with its neighbors. Much like the polar snarljaw uses its bite to freeze its victims, the frozen hand of Bjarl may be trying to sneak its teeth into neighboring Galat. Nearby orcs and even residents of Sigmar's fortress cities are now wondering what will happen if the DEATHGORGE's tunnels reach all the way to the center of the Gnarlwood, fearing an end to life in Gorge as they know it. The most desecrated victim of the Everwinter is Undertor, to its north, where Bjarl's rocky fangs have ripped at the coastline and injected it with the curse's eternal chill. With most of Antor's seafront now breaking into shredded ice floes and its lands reduced to sub-zero tundras, many denizens of other continents fear a similar fate may await them if the Everwinter is not stopped, and there is no better place to study the curse than in the DEATHGORGE. Experts in geomantic energy are often among the adventurers of the DEATHGORGE, embarking on quests to save the realm. However, since the Everwinter seems to delight in trapping souls within its glacial walls, the crisis may be growing worse with each new warband that descends into its continent-spanning wormways. This is Mats again, chiming in to thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, and to not miss out on future content, ring the bell as well. And if you really liked this video, feel free to click the thanks button just below this video. And if you want to support me even further, you can now become a channel member and claim the title of Critical Focus Fan. Until next time, take care, bye.